Hello, friends. Actually, the topic I'm talking about today came about just by a sheer coincidence. About 10 days back, after a long gap of 5 years, I visited a show called the IIJS. Of course, anybody from the gem and jewelry industry would know about it, but for the others, it is, I would say, undoubtedly the most premier and successful jewelry show in India. There, while I was walking the aisles, I heard a few people call out my name. And I turned around and saw some people waving at me whom I had no clue, or I didn't think I had ever met them. But they came up to me and asked me if I was Hemant. I said yes. And then they told me that they've been listening to my episodes and all. And while standing there in the aisle, the five of them and me, we got into a kind of brainstorming about what is the current state of the industry, where do we see the industry going in the future, what are the things that they can do to counter many of the challenges that are there. The most significant one, of course, being about the lab grown diamonds and various other things. Now, during this conversation, one of the gentlemen who was with his cousin brother told me that he owns 3 stores, independent retail chain stores for jewelry, and that they, as a family, have a vision of professionally managing the business and converting themselves to a retail chain. Naturally, this was going to be a long, long discussion, so we found some sitting space, grabbed a cup of coffee, and the discussions that happened for the next about 30, 40 minutes are what has led to this. While we discussed many things about becoming professional and whether the family is ready for it and blah, 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 one thing came very clear is that they wanted me to help them over the course of the next 12 to 18 months to set up a system whereby they can get professionally managed. So while all this was going on, one of the questions I asked them, which I feel is the most important when you want to become a professionally managed company, is whether they have a board of directors. Not surprisingly, the answer was no, which I can well understand. I don't think too many companies, no matter how big they are, also have boards, which are truly boards. And that is the point I'm trying to make, is that in the same sentence where they're telling me that they do not have a board, they tell me that, but it's not a problem. We have 5 of us from the family who are already in the business, and we have many other family members. We'll just make a board of 9 or 11 or whatever you say. And this is where the problem starts. And I realized that I have a tough time over the next 12 to 18 months because I need to change their mindset, which I'm sure you all agree is a phenomenal task. Changing a mindset of a person is not an easy job by any stretch of it. And therefore, today I talk about boards in a family business and how and what are the essentials to become a professionally managed family business. And of course, as I said, the first thing is the boards. While trying to get your family business professionalized does not mean that all family members become hands off and just become bystanders in the business. Far from it. They need to be in the business. They need to make sure that the business is, because at the end of the day, it's their investment, it's their business. So they don't need to become bystanders and just plain owners of the business. But it is definitely necessary that they create systems, that they create a structure that will not be governed by the whims and fancies and diktats of one or more of the family members, but which has a sound footing and which is something that is acceptable in today's world. So while it was very clear that they don't have a board of directors, what we need to look at, or what we are going to look at today, is what is the need, what should be the composition, and what should be the purpose of a board when you create one. So why a board? A board is required because more than the owners who are managing the business, it is the board that will steer the business in the right direction. How that happens and what the board needs to be comprised of, we're coming in some time. It will help, the board will help create a business that is resilient. It will manage and ensure, not only manage, it will manage and ensure that the entire business has a positive impact on all the stakeholders in the business, starting with the family, the employees, the vendors, the customers, the society at large, and all other investors, if there are any. A lot of times, family businesses have no other investors. But it needs to, board is going to be one that is going to manage and make sure that every stakeholder has a positive impact about and from the business. So having said that, the board serves three. Why you need a board? It serves three main purposes. The first is it will provide guidance to the business. The second it will provide an oversight, which a family member running the business on a day-to-day basis would not get the best of. And the board has to remember that one of its primary functions is to promote, is to protect and make sure that the company and the owner's values and interests are taken care of. They cannot ever escape that. No board can be so powerful to say that the family go to hell. That's not a board. Okay. As I said, generally, what I have seen in family businesses is that the boards are comprised mainly of family members. And if there are not enough family members in the business, then the wives of some family member or a son or whatever is made a member of the board, because to fulfill the statutory requirements. But this is not the best way to compose your board. And while it may seem very comforting and reassuring to the family that, okay, they are the ones who are in total control, it is actually going to be detrimental and it could harm the business, not only in the long term, sometimes even in the short term. So the family will also suffer, the business will also suffer. Because when it's a family business, the two are, so to say, joined at the hip. One suffers, the other is bound to suffer. And imagine how much this would get complicated if there are two sections of the family that are at loggerheads with each other. Yes, happens frequently, more often than one would like to think. So the board, whenever the family decides that, okay, we are ready and we want to have a board, the first thing they have to ensure, the family has to ensure, is that the board must be one that can function optimally and independently. Because if, as I said, they're going to appoint family members and cousins and sisters and brothers and wives to the board, that's not going to be an independent board. And therefore, even then, only what the 2 or 3 family members managing the business say will go about. The board must have a purpose. You don't create a board just to say that I have a board of directors. The board must have a purpose. And their practices should be well defined and clearly discussed and accepted by both the board as well as the family. They need to iron that out because they can't keep on fighting and squabbling all the time. And it should be clearly understood by the family as well as the board that the board is expected to operate only on the strategic level and not the operational level. They are not going to be involved in day-to-day activities and any administration work. Even statutory, the board will guide what is to be done, but it has not to be done by the board. So, see, let's accept one thing. At the end of the day, how the business performs and what is the ultimate future of the business, whether it is sales, whether it is statutory requirements, whether it is expansion, whether it is mergers and acquisitions, whatever else it is the call of the owners and not of the board. It's not the management's call. It's the call solely of the owners of the business. Now, when we know that it's the call of the business, naturally, the board becomes an advisory and not a management functionality. So when we are looking at all these aspects and what the board is expected to do for the business, I think it's very clear that the composition of the board is vital because it's going to look after everything and become a prime advisor to the family as far as the business is concerned. And the board and the owners have to set up, have to pen down what are going to be the best practices in interacting individually as well as with each other. And I think the family needs to recognize the importance and the need for having independent directors on the board, not just family members and friends and relatives. Because considering the whole advisory that the board has got to become, the board on the whole, not any individual member, but all the members of the board put together, they should have the knowledge, they should have the skills, and they should have the experience in all areas of the business, starting from finance to legal, starting from industry trends to operational hazards or challenges, from new tech and new machinery to what are the modern day innovations and what are the changing business models that are arising, not only within the industry, but outside the industry, which are going to impact your industry or which you can borrow and bring into the industry. So the board has to be composed of various people who are experts in various areas as required. And this is very important because the businesses today are undergoing change at such a rapid pace that just the managers or the business family members who manage the business are not going to be able to do it. And you are going to require specially trained and experienced board members who will guide you on various aspects of the business. But having said that, let us not discount the fact that it is imperative that at least one or two, depending on the size of the board members must be family members whose main task there is not to guide them about the new technology coming in or the new innovations or new machinery or new business models coming in. Yes, if they have the knowledge, the board will be better equipped. But the main role of those two family members on the board is to ensure that the board does not stray from the values and the goals that the family has, so that the board cannot wipe away what the family really stands for. And in the same way, just like we say you must have two family members, a board, again, depending on the size, must have at least two or more independent directors who are not family and friend, but who are professionals and who will help to make the composition of the board more versatile, more result-oriented. Frequently, what happens is that family businesses tend to treat the boards at their beck and call. They want meetings every week. I know one board that wanted a meeting twice a week. Why? They are not involved in day-to-day operations. So you don't need them, because too many meetings, first of all, will lead to the board getting involved in operational activities, which is not their domain. And also, when you have too many meetings, it's a sheer waste of time of everybody there, including the entire management of the thing, because they'll be preparing reports and whatever else, PPTs and everything else, to tell the board what they've been doing. And what are you going to tell them twice a week? So if you do this, a board is going to become a micromanager, which is not what their profile is. They are strategic managers. A norm that I have noticed and always recommended is a quarterly meeting. And a quarterly meeting makes sense because every quarter you need to review what has happened in the quarter, how much off you are going by what you had predicted for the whole year, and what corrective actions need to be taken. Yes, in certain cases, and I've seen this happen a lot in the case of startups, meetings more than just quarterly are required. And even in existing businesses, when there is crisis or an existing business which is going into a new project, which is like a startup, then at the end of the day, they may need frequent meetings, and that is justified. So if justified, meet often, meet every day if you think it is really justified. But otherwise, don't waste your time. Now, when we say that we want to become professional as an organization, I think there are two things that are very, very important that come to mind. And these are the two things that have come to mind throughout the day when I've been preparing the content for this. And the first one is no favoritism. So often I have seen, even the companies that I have been associated with, if the family members likes that guy or the girl or whoever else is there, that person's life is made. But for any reason, if not, then that person is going to work through a living hell. So no favoritism. And I recommend very often to everybody who are in the family business, bring in an outside CEO. Most of the companies don't want to do that because they want to retain control. And very often the reason why they want to retain control is, why would I trust somebody else with my money? Come on. You're not going to find somebody who's going to walk away with your money or who's going to waste his money. He has his career to think of. So bring in an outside CEO if necessary. Often I have seen the need for an outside CEO. And there are various things. Like one of the things is that no family member is really interested in running the day-to-day affairs of the business. But the family wants him to be there. He stays there because he has no choice, poor guy or poor girl, but he has no or she has no interest in that business. Very often, especially in the business I have been in, I have seen that the next generation takes over, even though they lack the skill and or the ability to lead the business. In a few cases, I have seen that the family wishes to just remain investors and eat the fruits, but not get their hands dirty on a day-to-day basis. This is absolutely understandable. But then there is the need for an external CEO. You can't be hands-off and be the CEO. The family has other businesses. Maybe they're just two family members, but they want to start a new business. So one of them is going to probably, or maybe both of them are going to focus on that for some time. So to run the existing business, they need somebody. So they need to get a CEO. Very often I've seen when something like this happens, they'll pick up somebody from the existing team and put them as the operations in charge, and the business starts going down. And simply because at times, getting a CEO and getting a well-composed board together help to grow the business very, very successfully and exponentially, because you are getting outside experience and perspective, and which can make you the disruptor in a business. So that helps a lot. When you bring in a CEO, you have to remember a few things. It's a long process. It's a slow process. It's going to take time. But there are 5 steps you need to remember. The first is let the CEO learn about the business, about the industry, and about the changes that are happening. Second is listen. Let the CEO listen to the team, to the family members on what they need and what they think about the business. Observe. Let him get a chance to properly observe the operations. And then let him start owning the business and start the role of managing the business. And make sure that he and you as a family member evaluate his performance after some time. Having said this, there are a few other things that we would look at. And one of the things that is most important to look at is how to retain and get in talent. And that is really a very important task, because, very often, because very often what happens is that we have great talent within, but we don't make use of it. Or we don't pay salaries that are competitive and that forces that good talent within our organization to leave and go. Think about it. I think retaining talent is not rocket science, and I'm sure each one of you will find a way to do that on your own. So I hope this is helpful. We're going to look at some other aspects of family businesses over the next 2 episodes. Good evening and have a great day.